I said, I know that you'll give me strength, hope whenever I'm weak.
Let me tell you that only Jesus changes life. That pain up in your heart, only Jesus makes it right. Yeah, your heart's so hard, you've been fighting on your own. My sister, don't you let the devil win. Jesus on the throne, you're made on purpose and with the purpose. So let me tell you, Jesus' grace is sufficient. So don't let him tell you that you ain't worth nothing. Cause Jesus gave his life, he loved you so much. He went and paid
I've
the
been
price.
broke so many times.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of
Kingdom Minded.
Oh, like always, with me is Angel Montalongo, and today our special guest is
Pastoro Caleb Melendez, straight from Juarez, Mexico.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
good.
Glad to be here.
Go ahead, Angel. You had some questions.
We're gonna get
Load
right
them
into
up
it.
and get right into it. What's good?
All right. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you, Pastor. We're kind of just keeping the tradition of having, like you said, we had last week. We had Pastor on from Denver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Alex. So now we wanted to go international, right across the border. Pastor Caleb. He used to be our youth pastor at the mother church, and now he's pastoring. He took over one of the churches in Juarez. So, we wanted to kind of bring him on the set and kind of ask you how the transition's been. Going from young men to full-grown men, young women, and of course full-grown women, couples, and all that. How's the transition? Plus, of course, the language. I remember when you were first getting ready to go out, you were telling us that your Spanish wasn't up to par, and now you're preaching to fluent-speaking Spanish-speaking people fluent. So I guess just a little bit about how any challenges and whatnot.
Well, just from the transition from youth pastor to actual pastor was a big thing, and just going out is it's crazy because you always quote scriptures like it's easy to quote, I walked through the valley of the shadow of death when you're sitting in Pastor Stephen's church, and it's super easy. You're going through something, you just give them a call and set up a meeting and it's all good. But well, when you're somewhere else, those scriptures become real life,
Right.
And now it's not just something I quote, it's something I actually believe, and I've seen it for myself. So that's been a major shift in my own personal life, that I could say that I've seen some growth there, and not just that verse, but many verses. I could probably sit here and talk to you guys about financial miracles and all sorts of stuff that when you're under pastor, when you're in your own mother church and you're just there, it's a little bit easy to just kind of post it and
almost take it for granted.
I'm not talking bad about nobody or trying to put nobody down, right? But it's just my own personal experience that the church received us really well. I've heard horror stories about stuff like that, and I thank God that it didn't happen with our church. We literally just got there, kept on going with the vision, which is to grow the church, take Juarez for Jesus, and that's what we're doing.
Amen. Speaking about your growth, now I sat under you in youth, under your ministry at youth, and then when we went out to help your church in Juarez, I noticed a big change in the way you preached and the authority you had during altar call. Can you talk to us a little bit about the development of that and how that came about and what changed?
I can't specifically say like where exactly the change, but I just know going out was a big thing. When you go out, it's just kind of like it's like from training to live fire, and it just like I said, there was a lot of things in myself that I didn't realize sitting in the mother church, and nothing bad, but just little things I didn't notice. When you go out there, you realize prayer life wasn't on point where it should be. Bible reading could be better. Just getting a hold of God more often, and just seeing God move and taking God for His word. All those things play into effect, I would say. So I don't know exactly where, but I just know going out in general has helped me, especially being in Juarez, that so many scriptures have come to life. And I studied Psalms 23, which is the good shepherd, not the good shepherd, but the shepherd's psalm, and that verse, there's so much stuff in that text and verse, and it's so real to me now being out there. I've actually, believe it or not, I've been on some outreaches where I'm kind of scared, and I'll pray that verse in my mind, and this is it.
Yeah. And you know what, now that you mentioned about being scared, one of the things I know that's on my mind, maybe the viewers watching, the fact that I said Juarez, you know, one of the things that you first can think of is the violence out there. You know, of course, you know, everybody's still talking about COVID-19. That's one of the things that's still on our minds right now, fresh. But the violence, I mean, you know, you said that you're kind of scared on outreaches. So, when we know before this thing happened, when you were going out there, what was your approach? And obviously, you're meeting up at the church, you're praying, everybody's prayed up before you hit the streets. But you know, I remember the reason is that I remember we had the pleasure of going out there.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we were outreaching. I tried to be bold like I hit here in El Paso. And I remember I was over there and I could have sworn at the stoplights. I just mentioned El Paso and the guy froze and just looked at me like he was ready to come at me. You know, and I remember you telling me, hey, you got to be careful what you say around here, how you approach people. You never know. Sometimes that could be, a cartel member, somebody, even a 17-year-old looks like an innocent kid. Getting, to the point here is that what approaches, how do you approach people? You can't really come really direct.
I've learned that Juarez is bad city, crazy city. But it's not as bad as you think it is. When you get there, you could still live life. You could still, function, do all the things you need to do. But it's not as bad. So when you get there, it's kind of like, what the heck did I get myself into? But once you start getting to know your area, your city, and once the community kind of knows you there and everything, it's a little bit less, And so that helped a lot. And then, like I said, just trusting in God.
Yeah.
There's, you can't really call the police there. You can't carry your own firearm. So you just have to trust that God, sent you there and He's going to take care of you.
Amen.
Yeah. Do you feel dominion? I would want to say like a dominion when you go out and you're witnessing and things like this. I remember when we went out to help you. We were at a bus stop.
Yeah.
And then, later on, we found out that you sent us to a bus stop where somebody had actually gotten killed, like the week before. But I remember when we went out there, we're like, you know what, we're gonna take Juarez for Jesus, and we started street preaching right there, and your guys were like, and then all of a sudden they just kind of turned on and.
Yeah.
And so I guess I have a two-part question. Was it like that before, and then after that, have your disciples carried it?
So when I got there, like I said, I've been kind of chipping away at it because it wasn't easy. I've been kind of chipping away at it. I could say that we've gained more dominion. I know that we can get more and more, and there's always more to take, but stuff always happens, and you kind of have to reestablish it and keep it there. So I could say we've been chipping away at it, trying to just break it through. And it's a like I said, it's a crazy city. But I have to say, when you guys came down, I wasn't actually in that group with you guys. We went to a different place. You went to another one. One of my guys that was with you guys, Luis. He was really moved by it. He was like, he wasn't expecting you guys to do that. And he was just like, but I could say after that, it's something that he's wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I've mentioned how we used to do that here. Remember the skate park? Yeah. Carolina skate park, when we went right in the middle and just, we'll go downtown, go to the mall, street preach. So I mention all those stories when I preach or when I'm talking to them, and they'll tell me, well, we want that. Mm-hmm. And when you guys went and did that, it kind of, I could say, catapulted that into a little bit more of an effect. So
I would say it does brings a different quality when you go out and actually do it for yourself. It does something inside of you. I remember when I first got, I don't know if I shared this story with you, but when I first got saved, within that month, Manny invited me to go downtown with him. And so he's like, we're going to go street preach, we're going to go downtown. I'm a new convert, I don't know. So I'm kind of scared, I really don't know. So I tell him yes, and then he starts driving, I'm following, and then as I'm driving that way, I'm overthinking it, and I'm saying, you know what, I'm not going to go. I'm going to get off the freeway. So I take it, exit, like I exit the freeway, and I get a phone call. Hey, brother, I saw you exited the freeway. I'm turning around to come get you. And I'm like, no, I'm going to get there. Don't worry about me. And so he comes and he pulls up, and he's like, follow me, brother, follow me. So I'm slowing down my car so I could get a red light, so that way we could get separated. and it's not working. I stop at a red light. He pulls over, but he forces me to go downtown with him, and then we get there to outreach and street preach, and he tells me, and I tell him, you know what, Manny, I'm scared. There's something, you know, I just don't want to do it. Maybe next time. And, you know, he forced me to do it, but he broke something in me that day when I opened up I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it. I just opened up my mouth. Who knows what I said, but it did something to me that day.
I could remember street preaching a lot of times, but when I did it at the mall, I could specifically remember that something broke inside. I can't really explain it all, you know, but I remember when I did that, it was like, I can remember still, it was like a shift in my own personal life. And so I know what you're saying, that it does something to you.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely. Classic Manny. Classic Manny.
So I want to ask you one thing. I know that you preached a really good sermon. We got a kind of a leak on what you preached last night. So I'm trying to remember the title. Was Antidote, right? Or,
the Antidote to Bad News.
The Antidote to Bad News. So I guess what I'm going to ask you before you tell me how that went, because I know that Pastor Stevens had mentioned, you gave him that scripture. He mentioned it last night in the service, and then I looked going back on that screenshot of your computer, and you used that same scripture, right, to preach. That was my main text. Before I get into that, I was going to ask you. So obviously, there's a lot of younger men in the church, right? There's some older men, right? So I guess it's also like a two-part question, like Adam had earlier. So, what are you feeling? You're getting up there to preach your first night, first morning, whatever. Was it in the morning or the evening service that you first debuted per se? Was it?
It was the evening service.
Okay, evening. So you're about to get up there. You see men that are older than you. They say like, okay, this is our pastor. This guy looks like he's like young enough to be my kid. You know what I mean? So in the run up to that, first of all, what were you thinking, man? What am I going to preach? And then, what were your thoughts as you were going to preach to somebody older than you, plus having a fellowship or interact and already introduce yourself as their pastor and everything? What kind of...
So that has been a challenge for me. Yeah. Kind of older people and stuff like that. But one of the things that I've come to learn is just the gospel is kind of ageless. Nice. You can preach to... Everybody goes through problems, everybody goes through trials, and you can always preach about those things, and it will always hit with people. And some sermons might not be specifically for older people or for younger people, but they're always people want to be blessed. Yeah. People want to hope, and everybody can kind of relate to those things, no matter what background, how old. I've come to find out that people always are just looking for something to hold on to, and those are things that I've come to learn, and I'm sure I'll learn much more. But those are some of the things that have helped me with older people, younger people, people that I can't really necessarily relate with, maybe different backgrounds, but everybody's always looking for
those key.
Yeah, and you preach those things, and everybody's got backgrounds, past mistakes, things like that. When you start mentioning those things, it starts, hitting home, and then so.
Amen.
Going back to the second part of the question. Well, the first one, of course, was obviously the taking over with the men that are older than you. And I guess your first sermon that you preached, were you nervous? Like, what am I going to preach about? The subject. You're
Absolutely.
Like, man, what I bring here, or what I don't even know anybody. What am I? I guess the inspiration for that sermon. What was the first? Do you remember the name of the title? Everything for sermon.
A Message to Captives.
Message to Captives.
Yeah.
And how did that go over? First night.
Good. I think it was good. I've asked them all if they remembered. None of them did, so I don't know how good it went. I'll ask them sometimes.
They're probably like, I don't know what you said.
They're probably just as nervous as you. They're like trying to figure out the Spanish, like, ¿Qué dijo?
They're trying to figure out Cholo or Spanish.
Like Spanglish.
I've come to find out a lot of words are not Spanish words. So
so I've heard that, because I know here we speak it very, they call it pocho, right? We speak it very chopped, just very slang. And I know in a godly setting, you don't do that. You can't butcher words like that, especially on the gospel. But so going on to the second part of the question, last night's sermon, how did that go over? With the
it went good. It was actually our first time live streaming We did it in our church. We preached, Livestream from there. So it was my first time setting that up. We got a good response on the Livestream.
That's good.
Our church runs like 45 people, and there was 100 and something views. So I don't know who, I don't know who all viewed it, but
that's good.
I hope it helped everybody. The antidote to bad news. Everybody receives bad news, one point or another, and just like coronavirus is bad news. And just kind of how to, overcome any type of bad news that comes your way.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So since you're in the hot seat, I want to kind of dig a little bit with these questions and really get as much out of you as I can. So you're a convert. You're coming up in our mother church. One, how do you know that you're called? How do you know that you're called to go out there and preach? I think that's something that a lot of men in our church are struggling with right now. Am I called? Am I not called? How do you know?
I can just tell you my own experience. I remember sitting under conferences several times and just seeing like Pastor Stevens, Pastor Greg Mitchell, like these great men, and I would just say like, man, something in me wants to do that. Something in me wants to be able to move. Like there were many sermons that have moved me and shaped me and molded me, and sometimes I've wanted that same. Like I just wanted it. Yeah. And that's how I knew I was called to preach, and I did the youth. I'm here now, and I love it. It's been some hard times and some stuff, but most of all, I love it. I love what I'm doing. I'm having a blast. Had a blast at youth. We had fun times. Yeah. A lot of fun things. I'm having a blast in Juarez, so I know that's what I want to do. So that's kind of my own personal.
I think what I wanted to add to that was, how you said that you're called is you have to also, I think, a love for people. And the fact that I know that you do is because my son was part of, youth when you were going. And then just, every conference when we bring our pastors back, not this one maybe, but other ones, just the kids that remember you, they get excited, like, I remember, Caleb, they get excited, they remember you, you leave that impression on them. So even that the fact that you're right across the border, you could just come and pop in for men's discipleship, things like that, or something that we have going on, Victory Rally, and the kids remember you. I think that's one of the things that is very important too. I think when you're called, you got to have a love for people and just say, I want to help people out just right now. And what thing was going to my mind, we said the antidote of bad news. The antidote to bad news was, Juarez. I just had a burden for that city. My father's from over there. He's a police officer over there. And I know that the people there are always used to receiving bad news. You kind of feel like it's a status quo for them, right? You're, it's like, man, if it's not poverty, it's death, it's murder, it's drugs, it's, homelessness, it's whatever, and then now it's this. It's like, man, it's like you as a person there in that city, I'd be like, man, can I get a break, Lord? And the fact that you're out there, you have men and some more men in the fellowship preaching. I just wanted to commend you for what you do. Not anybody can do. First of all, your Spanish, like you said, wasn't up to par. You know what I mean? Then you're taking your children. You have your children now. Your wife. You're gonna go into harm's way. I think that's one of the things that also says, hey, I'm called to preach because you're willing to lay everything down and go just because you love people. It's not like a big house was waiting for you over there, a nice car, a big fat salary. It's like, hey, you know what? Lost souls are waiting for me. People that are desperate, like you said. So I think that's awesome.
And one of the things, my own opinion, my own experience. There's like 11 pastors in Juarez, so can't speak for all of them. But my own opinion is that Juarez is kind of like you said, hopeless city. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go far. You don't have to look hard to find somebody that's in need. And it's been, the easy part is sharing the gospel, because it's good news. Literally, Jesus can help you, wants to change you, and people are looking for that. So for me, it's been really easy, establishing them, getting them to stick in church, another thing. But it's really, there's a real openness when you go to Juarez, and people are just looking for answers, and it's just when somebody goes and you engage them, directly, and they're just really open. That's what I've.
Last time that we talked, you have these disciples that are rising stars. They're really buying into what you're laying down over there, and you had a new preachers night. Yes. And they were out there and they're preaching the gospel and they're doing these things. Since coronavirus has kind of made everything change, one, how do you keep the momentum of those disciples going, and how are you doing it?
Unfortunately, we haven't outreached like we normally would. We haven't been able to even have church, just kind of like everybody else. So what we've been doing is we just started live streaming, which I've had some of the guys come, and that kind of helped a little bit. And also just talking to them, calling them, and just kind of asking them like, hey, have you what are you reading? Anything? Are you just trying to keep that fresh, and that's just what we've been doing. I know a lot of them are still telling me that since we started live streaming, they've been sending that link out to coworkers and people that they've been witnessing to for a while, but just never made the trip to church. So they've just been doing that. So that's been good too. And that's just kind of one of the ways that I've helped, or I think I've helped to keep them engaged and keep them going like that. So, and hopefully May comes around, stuff ends.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
So everybody's waiting for that, huh?
I hope.
So it's been like a trend in all the churches we've been talking to, where people are coming out of the woodworks. People that have gotten saved in the past are now reaching out to pastors. Is that happening over there in Juarez?
I have not received it yet, but not me personally, but I know my wife and some other people have reached out to other people. So there's like, for instance, one of the ladies that hasn't been in church maybe since 6 months. So we sent her the link, and she had stopped responding to all our messages. But we sent her the link, and she actually responded and said, hey, thank you, I appreciate it. I don't know if she actually watched it, but there was a response there with that, so that's been good too.
So just I guess we didn't, for those of you that maybe not familiar with you, just real quick touch on family. We know that you're one of 3 children, right? Total. Yeah. It's you, and then you're the oldest, is it?
Yes.
So correct. It's you, and then your brother Nathan.
My sister.
Your sister Marina, and Nathan, which of course your sister's a pastor's wife. Her and her husband are out there pastoring in Florida. Yes. Right? Orlando. And then of course your brother just got married. Congratulations, Nathan, to Victoria. So I know that also congratulations. You have another baby on the way.
Yeah, Moses.
Moses, very nice.
Moses Wesley.
Oh man, I didn't even know the name.
Wesley.
Yeah,
wow.
Moses Wesley.
All right.
June 6th.
June 6th. All right, that'll
it's
work.
an invasion all over again.
That's good. So
different type of invasion.
I guess real quick, because we know, of course, Caleb the pastor, right? We know Caleb the brother, Caleb the son. So about Caleb the father, and I'm not trying to get spiritual with this, So
Caleb the Holy Spirit.
No, I was like, they were have to cut this. I'd probably get kicked out of the church. But, so Caleb the father, how does it feel? Fatherhood. I know, of course, obviously, he's gonna be your 3rd child, but just some of the things I guess now with your children in that environment. Not kind of going back to any of that, but I mean the fact that they were here, and I know it's good the access coming back and forth and whatnot, but. Just I guess anything you can touch up on just, being a father out there, just your family.
Natalie was born, well, they were both born here, but Natalie was here for maybe like a year and a half in the U.S. Giselle was like a month old, and we went straight to, so she's now been longer in Juarez than the U.S., so she's probably more.
She's speaking Spanish right now.
Natalie's been a little bit more of a different, because she was barely learning English, and then all of a sudden go over there and all the kids are talking Spanish, and she's just like, what?
Yeah.
But it's kind of been the same. Huh. You watch your kids wherever you go. Maybe Juarez just a little bit extra. Sometimes my parents will be like, hey, can we watch the girls for the weekend? And just us knowing they're over here in El Paso is a relief, because over there you gotta you can't for a minute not watch your kid. Yeah. So it's different world, but I would say mostly the same, just a little bit more vigilant, a little bit more proactive, a little bit more, you're careful who you leave them with, stuff like that. But just a little bit more.
Wow. So you that balance, how you finding that balance? So it's time, with your kids, your wife. I guess I guess you could sometimes, you know how you run into in your ministry, you know, say for us that we're not pastoring, you know, he's married, of course I'm single, but, you know, as far as trying to find that balance, you know, him trying to spend time with his wife, doing his job. I know there for mission, it's a little bit different, you have more time, but do you sometimes find a little bit of a challenge trying to balance out maybe a date night with your wife because you have kids, you guys can't really go out, like, how do you find that?
Yeah, it's kind of been a struggle, but mostly we've set aside Mondays.
Okay, nice.
It's kind of like a family time. Kind of like a day off, if you want to say. It's not, you know, it's not always like that. There's revivals, but most of the time, if you know, you got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, you're just hanging out with people, doing stuff, follow up, Sunday church, talking to people, counseling, you know, just asking for advice. So sometimes Sundays we stay at church. We don't even go home because it's just people talking, and you know. So Monday comes and it's kind of like a, you know, let's just take Monday off, so to speak, and so that's kind of like when we do that. And obviously there's anniversaries and stuff like that, and we'll, you know, ask somebody to watch the girls or stuff like that. But most of the time Monday's kind of like the time we do that, and so that's been like that. Our girls are really small still. Got a 2-year-old. Giselle's gonna be 1, and then got another one on the way. So it's kind of been hard for somebody to watch all of them at the same time. So that's kind of been a
I got 4, so I know what you're talking about.
It's kind of been a struggle, like, hey, could you?
Here's my herd.
So that's kind of been the struggle for us, but it's still good. We still haven't, you know, we still make time. We still do all that stuff. So family's time is important, and kind of like when you just drive around, you know, you're in a different city in Juarez, and just even driving around could be fun. You know, you're just looking and hey, look at that, and you know, go to the mall or whatever, and you can just see stuff and like, hey, check out that store. You know, what's Liverpool and you know, Opel, and I never seen those stores before. You know, go check them out, and so restaurants and different things. So there's a lot of stuff that we can incorporate family time too.
What you make of it, huh?
Yeah,
that's good.
There's like a skating ring and stuff over there.
They actually have a little lake, and you can go paddle boat. They got ducks. They got a giraffe there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's Parque Central.
Oh, okay, we're gonna have to go.
Is Parque Boruna still out there?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never been.
No?
I heard it's a classic with all the little puestecitos.
Yeah, they used to do corn in the cup, and then they have like a little Ferris wheel. They have like a little feria.
I have yet to go, but it's been.
My wife's my tour guide every time I go to Mexico or anything like that.
Yeah.
She's well, she grew up over there.
Yeah. Well, I'm still learning Juarez, so there's parts I haven't been to yet, but you know, I'm getting familiar with my side. So next month, May 5th, will be a year
Already?
that we've been there.
Wow.
So.
You have anything? Well, I know if this thing, you know, that blows over. You know, what do you have anything planned? If, you know, for the church.
Actually, I was hoping Kingdom Business would. I remember we had mentioned it after conference. Remember, but all this kind of.
All right.
You know, I haven't planned it, but I'm.
Yeah,
hoping.
it kind of put a wrench in a lot of our outings.
But absolutely, I hope I can get Kingdom Business to come down. I know last time I didn't do the free food and some
our
other
rates
stuff.
went up. I don't know if we could.
Maybe we won't do free food then. I don't know. There's some stuff, improvements that I wanted to make and I saw. So hopefully Kingdom Business, outreaching, all that stuff, street preaching. We still got some, you know, other events coming up, and we'll have a good time.
Definitely.
And I know once this all blows over, I'd like to do a big fellowship at church.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's waiting for. That I think Pastor Stevens even mentioned. I think I just can't wait to be with all of you.
Yeah.
Right now we just had this video meeting with Pastor and some of the leaders at church and stuff like that. It reminded me so much. I know how old are you?
29.
So okay, so you're about there, and Angel for sure you're there.
Yeah,
but
wow, nice.
But
although I have more hair,
but I remember when we first had a computer, like when I was in elementary school, right? So we first get a computer, we have internet, and there was these things called chat rooms. You remember? And you would just go on there without being able to see, and you would just go on there and just talk to people. It's kind of like. It's kind of like what is happening, you know, with that. So it's funny. And then now when you go outside, you see kids on bikes. You see them outside playing. They're not supposed to be, but they're out there and they're playing. It's kind of cool to see everybody going back to that. I guess they're tired of their devices. They're tired of watching TV. They don't want to be inside. They want to be outside.
I remember those computers. They were like the clear, the blue.
Well, that's the fancy one. I had they're talking about the Apple computers.
Yeah, the Apple ones.
Yeah. Clear the back to different colors.
I had the one with the big floppy disk that you put in. You play Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail. And then if you were playing football, you had to read the screen on what was going on. I remember that. And you put the floppy disk in wrong, it made some weird noise. Yeah. So I think we just showed our age. I know Pastor Kino's trying to think about what are they talking about.
You're a little bit younger.
He's like, this is a part of the show where I just take off.
He's on the fancy computer. The one with the clear. What?
But you know, I think you know what? It's refreshing to see that, man. I think when you take away things that people are normally used to, it's like, I think honestly I could say that God's got our attention. Mm-hmm. You know, even as Christians, you know what I mean? Because you're like, man, I'm stuck here. So what am I gonna do? Okay, they took away ministry, but I'm gonna, you know, still do this. I'm gonna still read. We're gonna do this podcast. Like, you know, my brother came up with that idea. I said, man, here we are. Look, and people are actually tuning in. They're liking it. Mm-hmm. You know, and the fact that we're
concerts on Saturday.
The concerts on Saturday too. I wasn't invited to this last one, but I heard it's really good. I saw it. The good thing is I'm subscribed, so I saw it.
We got like 10,000 viewers.
Really?
The last 3 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And people have been responding, right, to the altar calls and everything.
People have been responding to the altar call, and yeah, it's really
incredible.
Cool. Yeah, so
wow.
I don't want to say we're competing with the Edge now, but we're competing with the Edge. I'm curious to see how many viewers they get on Saturday.
Well, he said I'm just wearing this shirt. But anyway, so do you have any words of wisdom? Something to say someone that you know said, you know, when I go, you know, pastor one day, you know, what can you I guess some advice to anybody out there saying, hey, I want to preach. I like what he does. You know, something that I know you're never always gonna be. You're not gonna be ready, right? Per se, you'll never be ready or be prepared. But maybe words of wisdom, you know, they'll nugget.
Well, the thing that I would tell people is just get yourself as best as you can, and just let God do the rest.
Amen.
So if you pray, you read, you study, you make the best sermon. Sometimes I'll tell myself if I'm writing a sermon, I'll be like, man, if Pastor Greg Mitchell was writing this, it'll be 10 times better. Mm-hmm. So I got to find and dig and try to get whatever I can get out of it, and then just when I go and preach, just hope that God will touch them.
Amen.
That I hope that my preparedness will help, and that the Holy Spirit will do its job. So that would be my advice: just do your part, and God will do His part.
Amen. And surround yourself. I think it's good to surround yourself with other people that are doing what you do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I talked to Pastor Alex Rodriguez, Denver, Andre, Florida, Nick, China. Those sometimes it's hard to come up with 3 sermons a week.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'll get with them, they'll be like, "Hey, I have this idea," and I'm like, "Great, you know, let's work on it." Boom, boom. Or you know, you got your Wednesday sermon or a Sunday night, Sunday morning, and you know, so absolutely. You got to get with you have to have some sort of pastoral friends that can
kind
help
of speak.
You. Yeah, they always send me offering illustrations. I always send them a revelation, a thought, you know, just back and forth. And
is this a subscription we could enter into, or is it a closed group?
No, I mean, it would probably be better if it was a pastor, because you could kind of jump off of it and stuff. But you know.
No, I'm saying so we could enter your group.
Oh.
Yeah, he said be better as a pastor. So I think that's what he meant. We're out. I think we're out. But
I remember when I would write a sermon, and I'd preach it, and I'd say, "Oh, this is iron." And then Caleb would come up to me after and be like, "Hey, you know, if you add this, if you do this, it just makes it better." And I'd be like, "All right." But every time I preach with that in mind, like, "Oh, let's see, like." He's not gonna be able to say nothing. Like, I got everything covered on this one. And
I try to do the same. I'm like, I know if Greg Mitchell had this, Pastor Greg, this thing would be a masterpiece. So I try my best to study and bounce thoughts off of others. And sometimes I'll share a thought with Andre or Alex, whoever, Nick, and they'll throw me a perfect illustration. I'm like, sweet. Yep. You know, kind of completes the whole. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So it's always good to definitely. Absolutely have pastor friends that you can bounce thoughts off of and things like that. So pray for each other. Yeah, you know, like I said, it's just a little bit different. You know, it's kind of hard to explain, but you know, you can always tell people to pray for you and stuff, and I know they do. but just like a pastor knows exactly how it feels, you know. Like,
he knows kind of what you're going through.
yeah, sometimes you tell people, don't do that, come on, man, and they go do it, and you're just like, I just told you that would happen, you know, and you're like,
yeah.
But and sometimes they can relate to that, and you know, hey, pray for me because this and that. Oh yeah, absolutely. So.
Well, I appreciate you, Caleb. Do you have anything?
Well, I just wanted to, one last thing that I thought, you know, it's all making sense.
Don't say I said that.
But, okay.
I'll cut that out.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, one last thing that I wanted to say is that both of you actually, it's the way you're saying that when you're writing a sermon, you said Greg Mitchell, you said you bring it up to Pastor Caleb and say, hey, you know what, Pastor Stevens mentioned in the meeting tonight, you know, for the Bible study leaders and assistants when we're up there preaching, even though it's just a Bible study, he's like, you still want to bring the best, you know, quality stuff, you know, you want to preach like it's the best thing they've ever heard on that subject.
Yeah.
And he said that even in the run-up to sermons, he's already thinking about his next one. It's not maybe he's going to preach on Sunday, but months in advance, and he thinks about a subject for a long time, and it's just there kind of, and you're like, wow, you know what, now I know why the preaching is powerful, you know, it's, and then you guys think about, hey, you know, even says, I know you have great preachers like Pastor Warner, you know, Pastor Mitchell and all that, so he said, I'm not trying to, you know, compete with them in any way, but I want to be that kind of good quality, you know, like we just came off of a conference, right? Every sermon was just powerful. You know?
The sermon I preached, the antidote to bad news, I sent it to Alex, you know, and then he responded back. And he said, I would change this, and add this. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. You know, and I did. I took some stuff out, added some stuff. But I know if it was just a sermon on my perspective, it would be kind of dull. Maybe a little bit more boring. But once you start throwing in different, you know, you think different, you think different, you used to, you know, we all view different.
You got to be open to that, right?
Once you start throwing in some stuff, kind of reach a broader group, because now it's, you know, people don't think like me. Not everybody thinks like me.
Right.
Yeah,
so once I start getting some other thoughts, I can start reaching more of my congregation, and it'll hit them more. So yeah, absolutely.
You got to be open to it, I think, too. As men, I mean, we can be very prideful. Like, hey, what are you talking about? Like you said, this is iron. You know, what are you talking about? Like,
I actually told Alex, no, I'm not going to use it. But
behind the scenes, he's like, oh, behind the scenes, we'll try to see if we can edit that.
No, I did use it, Alex. I did take his advice.
That's funny, man. That's really good.
All right, well.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do
sign
it.
off. Yeah.
All right, we're about to sign off, right? So, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caleb, for joining us today.
Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming down and willing to come in. You're our first guest that we have here live in person, breaking the 6 feet apart rule with us.
Well, maybe with Angel.
Yeah, we're like coming over from Juarez, but you know what? We're gonna take that gamble.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I don't think people in Juarez are scared of coronavirus.
They just have enough trouble trying to stay alive every day. Huh? They have enough trouble just trying to get out of my house in the morning.
It's too bad. I don't think they're 4 feet. Like, it's all good.
Like, that's perfect. That way, whenever you're gonna do something to me, I have like a clear shot of running, you know, or something. But yeah. Anyway, so you know, we're going back to, if you guys have any comments, you know, suggestions, please let us know. You know, someone told us that you know, we shortened up the oh,
it was him?
Yeah, the podcast. Oh, was I doing this? Sorry, I had a nervous tick. So you know, we shortened up the podcast. People kind of, you know, pay attention and whatnot. So we're open to anything, you know, comment, suggestions, leave them there. Except, you know, if there's something you want to see, don't want to hear, but if it's the gospel, that's all you're going to hear. We're going to talk about Jesus, or talk about, you know, just positive, encouraging stuff, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
and we're going to be bringing on more guests. Andre's one that just came to mind. We got to reach out to him.
All right, absolutely.
If you guys have any questions for any of our guests, make sure you leave them in the comments below, and then we'll ask those questions as they come up.
And thank you guys for the podcast, and I enjoyed the first 2. I know, well, I don't, not being conceited, but I know I like this one too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Fun here.
Unless Pastor Alex sends us, hey, do this, take that out, then we're probably gonna go back and check it out.
I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
We appreciate
Thank you. Thanks,
Caleb.
Pastor, for coming along.
Mm-hmm.